Shoshana Walsh, who has been covering this scandal since day one and has covered Chris Christie for years. Thanks so much for talking to us. It's really fascinating to hear him saying that he's not a bully. And do you think he's changing his image? I mean, we've heard him saying stupid and worse to many people. So can a bully be president?
Well, he said over and over again before this scandal, after the scandal, that he's not going to change. But that really is the question. Whether he says he's not a bully, it's whether the American people interpret that. If he looks like a bully, does he seem like a bully? How does this play in Council Bluffs, Iowa? How does it play in Nashua, New Hampshire? Do they like that New Jersey style, or is it too much for them? And really, it's not just this scandal that could tarnish him going forward. It's that style. And he has said over and over again, he's not going to change it, Jorge.
Yeah, and definitely he's not going to change. Shoshana, thanks so much for talking to us. I really appreciate it. It's a fascinating story.
Hillary Clinton met privately with President Obama this week and held a high-dollar fundraiser for the Clinton Foundation, along with daughter Chelsea and husband, former President Bill Clinton, at their Washington residence. In Philadelphia, Shoshana Walsh, ABC News. The city wouldn't respond directly to the family's concerns, but stressed that the sifting of this new material shows that they are fulfilling their promise to the families to try to identify as many World Trade Center victims as possible using the latest technology. At Fresh Kills, Shoshana Walsh, New York 1. 6 and I say they will stay open for the remainder of the shutdown, and with the Republicans in Congress and the president still deadlocked, it looks like these workers could be playing political ping pong for quite a while to come. Shoshana Walsh, ABC News, Washington.
I want to bring in ABC's Shoshana Walsh in Washington to talk a little bit more about this. Tell me a little bit about Creigh Deeds and the political role that he's played in the state of Virginia.
Well, he's most widely known for his quite a significant loss in 2009 to Bob McDonnell. He lost by 18 points.
That race, though, a very publicly watched race, though, was it not?
It was, and he gave several interviews afterwards that it was very difficult to stomach that kind of huge loss, even through friends. And so this is just another absolutely tragic situation. But yes, it was a very significant, widely watched race, and he lost by a huge margin.
Experts are warning consumers who signed up for coverage on the government healthcare website to call their new insurance companies just to make sure they're enrolled. And then there are those who were unable to sign up at all. ABC's Shoshana Walsh has more from Washington.
25-year-old Desiree Holler came to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library this week to sign up for Washington, D.C.'s healthcare exchange in person. She had no luck online or on the phone.
I was screaming for a little bit.
Holler met with a so-called healthcare navigator who helps with the process.
This is like deja vu. I got really far, then it just crashed on me.
It just feels better to wait in person and actually dealing face-to-face with someone. So I also had issues on the phone lines as well, but issues all around.
Server issues made it impossible at first for Holler to sign up. Ultimately, she was successful. Not so for 56-year-old Liz Meitner. She said she has been trying to enroll since day one, October 1st.
I'm almost in shock. It's just hard to believe that they could be so inefficient with something so important, absolutely important. I'm grateful I don't have a serious chronic life or death condition.
She waited at the library for 5.5 hours, but still has no definitive answer on whether she will have health insurance starting January 1st.
Healthcare shoppers were trying to enroll up until the last minute. In the final days before the deadline, the administration says they had about 2 million visits to healthcare.gov and over 250,000 calls. Shoshana Walsh, ABC News, Washington.
And now we're joined by Shoshana Walsh, who has been traveling across the country for ABC reporting on this issue. Shoshana, thanks so much for having you here.
Thank you, Jorge.
Will they give Republicans a chance without immigration reform, or immigration reform is a prerequisite for Latinos to take a new look on Republicans?
Well, I think it's a really important issue, but I think that with a certain candidate, a lot of Hispanic voters would support a Republican. But I think it really also depends not just on policy, but language.
At the PAC National Constitution Center Tuesday evening, the former Secretary of State referenced President Obama's speech. Hillary Clinton again expressed her support for his efforts on Syria and to hold the Bashar al-Assad regime accountable.
That violates a universal norm at the heart of our global order, and it demands a strong response from the international community led by the United States. This debate is good for our democracy.
The former and possibly future presidential candidate was awarded the organization's 2013 Liberty Medal at the event hosted by ABC's Elizabeth Vargas. Clinton focused her remarks on the dangers of partisan gridlock.
When we let partisanship override citizenship, when we fail to make progress on the challenges facing our people here at home, our standing in the world suffers.
The event also featured a performance from singer Amy Mann.
Save me.
And another possible presidential candidate, Jeb Bush, the chairman of the National Constitution Center, also spoke.
Hillary and I come from different political parties, and we disagree about a few things, but we do agree on the wisdom of the American people, especially those in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina.
Hillary Clinton met privately with President Obama this week and held a high-dollar fundraiser for the Clinton Foundation, along with daughter Chelsea and husband, former President Bill Clinton, at their Washington residence. In Philadelphia, Shoshana Walsh, ABC News.
And perhaps the highest profile race of all was decided in the Garden State. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie cruised to a crushing victory over his Democratic challenger. ABC's Shoshana Walsh reports from Asbury Park.
Chris Christie has won re-election in New Jersey, decisively beating his opponent, Democratic State Senator Barbara Buono. This win sets the stage for his second term, but also for a possible presidential run in 2016. Throughout the campaign, he has preached a bipartisan message, telling ABC News just this week it is important to the future of the country to bring people together. And it will be his ability to win over Democrats and Democratic constituencies like Hispanic, African American, and female voters in this race that is sure to be his pitch to his party about how he can win if he chooses to run in 2016.
Now listen, I know that if we can do this in Trenton, New Jersey, maybe the folks in Washington, D.C. should tune in their TVs right now, see how it's done.
Christie's party is here on the boardwalk in Asbury Park. Now, of course, Asbury Park is home to Bruce Springsteen. And who's the boss's biggest fan? Well, Chris Christie.
Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords and her husband are on a multi-state tour through next Monday, and they are trying to reverse the gun control setbacks of earlier this year.
And they're getting their message across in a somewhat surprising way. ABC Shoshana Walsh joins us from Washington with more. Good morning, Shoshana.
Good morning, John and Ty. Former Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords and husband Mark Kelly kicked off their Rights and Responsibilities tour this week, aiming to pressure senators who voted against background check legislation in April to change their vote.
To kick off the tour, Giffords stopped at a shooting range in Las Vegas and shot a gun for the first time since that tragic day in Tucson 2.5 years ago when she was shot in the head. She showed no fear.
I want to introduce you all to the woman who inspires me every single day.
Kelly got in some target practice as well, launching their 7-day, 7-state bus tour to push for expanded background checks. Their message, we want gun control, we are not anti-gun.
Democrats and Republicans, everyone, we must do something. Fight, fight, fight.
They're making stops across the U.S. to Alaska, North Dakota, New Hampshire, and Ohio, as well as stops in North Carolina and Maine, where they will thank senators for casting their votes for tougher background checks, those that ensure gun sales at gun shows go through the same background checks as those bought in stores. The couple are also meeting with community leaders in these states, hoping to spread their message of what they call reasonable gun control. They launched Americans for Responsible Solutions in January after the Sandy Hook school shooting.
Through our research, we have found that a lot of criminals buy guns at gun shows and over the internet, and that needs to change.
An ABC News poll in April showed 86% of Americans support extending background checks to gun sales at gun shows and online.
Your thoughts, Shoshana?
Well, I thought it was interesting because she's held back till this point on making any comments about Egypt. And I know that she has foreign policy advisors. They're very good. They brief her. But I thought that she was pretty unprepared.
Shoshana, should they suspend Sarah Palin and Mike Huckabee, do you think?
Well, it's interesting that Fox believes that they're not getting closer to running for president, and they do believe that Newt and Santorum are, so maybe they know something that we don't.
When the president does something like this, he does it for a calculated political reason.
People that he wants to come out to vote next Tuesday that might stay home, that are not fired up, as you see the Tea Parties are the younger people that are going to watch The Daily Show tonight.
We all know, Shoshana, that on election eve, when the McCain camp conceded, that Governor Palin did want to say a few words, but they wouldn't let her. Now, you guys got the actual written speech?
We exclusively obtained the victory speech and the concession speeches.
So they had two speeches.
Yes.
Sarah Palin did.
It was written by a McCain speechwriter, and she tweaked it, so it's definitely in her own words. And the victory speech, we think, is especially interesting because it is a whole different world with John McCain as president.
You can't just have a camera and not an editorial presence, because then you can't be sure of what the video is saying.
They said, we're not going to send a camera if you don't let a producer in there. No way, you're not going to have those pictures of them shaking hands. It's not going to go anywhere. And then they relented.